Because you do not need the academic pedigree to know right from wrong. All you need is your moral compass.
This beacon of moral degeneracy that I thought was awesome. Beacon of moral degeneracy that I thought was awesome. Beacon of moral degeneracy that I thought was awesome.
All you need is your moral compass. Moral compass. Moral compass.
Leftist streamer Hasan has been having a very bad week, from being reprimanded from his uncle for being a bad ambassador for the left to the public.
Look, the idiots are making everyone think they are the left.
To now being dragged and mocked by almost all corners of the internet for his invitation to Cambridge by what seems like the contingent of socialist losers and communists who can't stand that their soy mocha latte was made in capitalism. Oh, it's so oppressive. Let me tweet about it on a MacBook on a site owned by the most impressive man on the planet. Oh, both of those things, yeah, created by masculine billionaires. Now, I don't want to throw too much shade at Cambridge for this video because I'm pretty sure they also had bad babies speak there. So clearly the brand of Cambridge is no longer intellectual impressiveness. For those of you who don't know, Hasan Piker is a leftist streamer who has said things like America deserved 9/11. He's fantasized on stream about doing illegal things to police officers' wives. He said that capitalists should be put in re-education camps. All of this I've made videos on, by the way. And he's had on a Houthi rebel. And just so we're all clear, the State Department literally classifies Houthis as a terrorist organization. So he's also platform terrorists. People are already making fun of him for mispronouncing words and not knowing what he's talking about. It actually went so badly for him that people are taking pictures of those who invited him and said, "Your average Hasan Shatter." I actually think your average Hasan Shatter is much more physically deformed than these two. I mean, presumably most of the audience would have an above average IQ if they are at Cambridge, but that doesn't mean, of course, that they haven't been ravaged and mentally wrecked by the resentment of Marxism. His talk was about freeing Palestine, of course. And after the talk, as normally happens, people get to ask questions. And most of the questions were stuff like, do you still stand by your statement saying landlords should be executed? Or you call yourself a socialist, but live your life embodying capitalism. Critiques that are all effective yet very low level. Because when dealing with somebody on the left who by de facto makes it their life to do war with and deny the objective parameters of society, including reason, rationality, logic, objective morality, masculinity, etc., because it's all oppressive constructs devised by the patriarchy, you're very easy to top once you engage in what should be an objective mental landscape. And so he was reduced to basically playing the card of, oh, I was joking every single time I said this heinous, incongruent thing. Now, this is part and parcel of the psychopath, because the psychopath, especially the modern psychopath, preys on the world by having anonymity with the internet and not facing any real world consequences. Here in the audience, though, people are calling him out. Check this out.
Streets so dreaded the capitalist flood of landlords. An era of really endemic political violence where everyone was seen over,
This guy's calling out Hasan for inciting political violence, saying that landlords should be killed, and Hasan laughs. That's the first thing the psychopath does.
Streets so dreaded the capitalist flood of landlords. An era of really endemic political violence where everyone was seen over, seen 2 MPs killed in the last 2 years. Do you think that's kind of a constructive way of bringing a left-wing position or kind of criticising capitalism and the role of
laughing, smirking, smiling, gloating at the fact that he said landlords and capitalists should be killed.
Landlords into this discourse, or is it sort of something you can say from behind the camera that actually has real consequences, but doesn't actually make kind of the impact?
What you're looking at, guys, psychologically speaking, is a psychopath being confronted with reality and accountability, more accurately, as accountability is derivative of objective frameworks from reality. Accountability to a psychopath is a joke, because they don't believe in anything besides themselves. They believe they are not only above you, which is a functional definition of a psychopath, but they are above reality as well. And so when being held accountable for their own words, to them it is a joke. That is why while on stage he smirks and laughs about his statement calling for the death of people. As Jordan Peterson pointed out a long time ago, not particularly with Hasan, but in terms of a greater point about the psychological landscape, the core of the left's insanity is made up by a dark tetrad personality distribution, involving traits like sadism, meaning taking pleasure at the suffering of others, narcissism, psychopathy, a grandiose sense of self, and not necessarily attached to those personality distributions would be a low IQ. But in the case of Hasan, that is the case. And that is why these narcissistic, deliberately sadistic displays are so readily available to the population, because the majority of people have a higher IQ than he does. What would be much more dangerous is a psychopath with dark tetrad personalities who's exceptionally competent and high IQ. That's where they can really prey on society. That's where the damage gets done, because they can manipulate people very easily. In the case of Hasan, he's only been able to manipulate the most destroyed, disadvantaged elements of the left, basically preying on the last 10% of the bell curve distribution of people that are completely ravaged by resentment and easy targets for the Marxist doctrine. But I want people to understand that this type of psychopathy that you're seeing is exactly who the left is. Psychopathically believing you are above reality, you are above objective frameworks, because objective frameworks are oppressive. Everything is a construct, therefore you are superior to everything else, because you are the arbiter of what's true. There's no such thing as virtue. There's definitely, obviously, no such thing as merit, because merit references capitalism and different capabilities. These people, I knew the type of kid that would easily be infected by Hasan's rhetoric in high school, because I went to basically a left-wing indoctrination ground, the same high school that Elon Musk's son went to, Xavier, before he became you-know-who. And it's the incompetent, it's the weak, it's the low verbal IQ men, boys, who can't stand up for ideas or debate ideas congruently or objectively. Instead, they rely on identitarianism, meaning an idea is true or false based on the identity of the speaker, as is virtue doled out in the same respect, where you are either a good person or a bad person based on your identity. And that's the only way leftists can function and believe that they're good people, while saying things that are the definition of evil, saying things that Hitler or Lenin or Stalin would agree with. We see this happening all the time. Leftists getting called out for it endlessly, where they say something so blatantly absurd, where there's a crack in their mask of fake superiority, and they say something so ugly and perverse and anti-civilizational, admitting that they think that they're superior to you, that everyone's like, whoa, look at that. Oh my God, can you believe the left is like that? And then they're like, yeah, we are like that. You caught us, but we still think we're better than you. The way leftists can operate that way is because they believe they're not only above reality, most technically speaking, according to their doctrine, but that they're above you. And Hasan is a perfect embodiment of that. Still laughing, still smirking, after being confronted for saying capitalists and landlords should be killed.
I was talking to him.
So here, of course, this is where he has to either say, I was wrong, or I was joking, or something else, because he lives in society. But he believes it's all a joke to him. He believes it shouldn't apply. Take a look.
A landlord when I had that conversation, and I don't think that he had an issue with it. He knew that we were messing around, but given that this is
he's still smiling and laughing at the idea that he said landlord should be killed.
What now 6-year-old conversation that I had with a landlord friend.
Oh, isn't it annoying how people keep bringing up old things that I said, like when I said America deserved 9/11? Why do people keep bringing up things that I said? Psychopaths don't believe that they should be held accountable for anything that they say or do, because they are above reality. This is the definition of narcissism. And I know, by the way, from my Twitter, from my X impressions, that there are a lot of people who watch these videos that aren't conservatives. They haven't been fully woken up. They haven't been fully red-pilled. Liberals and some even leftists watch this. And to you, I would say, understand that this should be a red pill moment. Take what I'm saying, understand the objective information that I'm giving to you here. And maybe after this video, go watch my analysis of Cenk and Hasan having a conversation where Cenk, a leftist, full leftist, said to his nephew, Hasan, we become too radical. We lost because the left is representing insanity. It's time to wake up, guys. This is not good.
Friend of mine at the time, I wouldn't take that too seriously, but thank you.
So should anything he says be taken seriously? Words have meaning, especially when you have a lot of followers, words have meaning. But to a leftist, nothing has to have meaning, most definitionally speaking, again, because postmodern neo-Marxism, which is the doctrine behind Marxism, states that there is no intrinsic meaning to life because reality isn't objective. And if reality is not objective, you can't derive anything from it. Nothing is comprehensible, nothing is ordered. And so life itself can't be ordered. You can't strive for an ideal. There is no meaning to life, therefore. And so everything you say is unimportant. This is a bad doctrine, not only because it makes life worse, but because it's technically wrong. Reality is objective. That doesn't mean that any person you are thinking of in your head has the answers. Oh, that annoying uncle that thinks he knows everything. No, that's not objective reality. Objective reality is science. Objective reality is the observable universe. Objective reality is that which stands to be discovered and understood because it's true. And from that truth, we can derive ways of operating, understanding, knowledge, and meaning, I think. One experiences by aiming yourself, or orienting yourself with the truth would be a better way of thinking about it, and aiming for greater understanding and enlightenment based on the truth. Leftism fundamentally has a disagreement with that worldview because it says there is no such thing as truth. The notion of truth is oppression. There is no merit. There is no better and worse ideas because there's no way to compare ideas because comparing requires category and category is discriminatory. Now, I know for leftists, most of this is going above your head, but that's okay. When I was 15 years old, most of this, when Jordan Peterson was explaining it to me, was going over my head too. But then I said, I have to dedicate myself to this, understand what's going on, because reality is better to understand than a false story. You're being led astray by psychopaths. You're being preyed upon by wolves in sheep's clothing.
No, I am not an advocate for killing landlords.
Laughing at that. Well, then why did you say that you were? Why did you say that you were then, Hasan? Why would you say that? That's not a funny thing to joke about. Could you imagine joking about that if it was another category, a protected category under the left? Could you imagine if I joked about doing that to let's say, the alphabet people? And I would never do that because that would be immoral and psychopathic, and I'm not a psychopath. Though if I were, it would be no problem because I would believe myself, just as Hasan does, to be above reality and above everyone else. This is the first clip that I saw, which was very funny, considering basically everything about this clip is funny. But it's only funny if you can stand on a large amount of knowledge and understanding and realize how absurd this is from every angle. Not wearing clothes that fit is a perfect introduction into the intellectual dog-level mental drivel that is the cognitive capability of Hasan and most extreme leftists. Mental unseriousness is part and parcel of who they are.
And succumb to helplessness because you do not need the academic pedigree to know right from wrong.
When I heard the words right from wrong coming out of Hasan's face, I knew that there had to be a video recorded here. Few things are as absurd as this. It's basically complete clown war. The left inverts reality, deliberately saying the opposite of the truth in their warfare with the objective parameters that I described earlier. I think even most leftists who have a peripheral understanding of what Hasan says on his stream would also find this absurd, either because they don't believe in right and wrong and so they would find it offensive, or they would be like, wait a second, Hasan routinely says things that are so heinous that can only be justified by him believing that he's superior to every person he disagrees with, and therefore right and wrong is uninteresting to him. So it's fraudulence on every level of analysis. All of this I realized in a couple seconds, and I thought, okay, yeah, this is nuts, but it gets crazier.
All you need is your moral compass.
Very nice. Oh, that's very good. Very, very good. Moral compass.
As someone who has seen the Palestine question evolve over my past 10 years of public advocacy, I never would have imagined international organs demand legal restitution from America's most valuable asset. After all, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen.
This is directly stolen from somebody else. He did not write this, but I don't think leftists realize that last statement of there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen is taken from somebody else because they're so poorly read. They have no cultural understanding there. They spend their day putting emotes in Hasan's chat of like, oh yes, landlords should be killed, or yeah, men can become pregnant. Yeah, that's right. Men can get pregnant. They're so far removed from understanding this that, don't get me wrong. Only like less than 10% of the people commenting under this stuff are commenting in support of him. Most people are mocking him, which goes back to the importance of the town square, the public being able to hold these psychopaths accountable, because that's what keeps psychopathy in line. Every single clip of him getting held accountable is going viral. This guy basically just berates him for like a minute, which, look, berate is the wrong word. Asks him why he lives in a mansion promoting capitalism while advocating for communism. And again, you see the same psychopathic display happening here, which I think if I was a leftist, I would find very embarrassing. Because think about this for a moment. You've already demonized objective reality, coherence, notions of right and wrong, better and worse, are all triggering because in your worldview, they're oppressive. And then you see the people engaging in all those things that you've deemed oppressive, like logic, reason, rationality, high-level abstract intellectual pursuits oriented by right and wrong and category, are headed by intellectual titans like Jordan Peterson, who wear three-piece suits on stage touring the country and is one of the most viewed speakers who ever spoke in this same location that he's sitting in right here. And you have to and you have to live with the fact that this is your representation as a leftist. This is who you have where the people you demonize have the most impressive intellectuals of the century, as well as the most impressive men of the century. And so you're really in a conundrum where you have no choice. This is where it's unfortunate and somewhat dangerous. You have no choice but to demonize the most impressive men of your age. This is why you see Elon Musk endlessly demonized, or Andrew Tate. Take your pick of man who is almost universally respected by other men. And you have to slander them, you have to demonize them, you have to say that you're more impressive than them, that these titans of our time are somehow unimpressive or not competent, while you simultaneously have to say that there's no such thing as meritocracy, while having to care that there is meritocracy. The point is, it's very easy to see why leftists become trapped in the cycle of resentment so quickly, because they're at war with reality itself, and this is their representation. It would be so embarrassing. Could you imagine, while we have Jordan Peterson, while we quote Socrates, these people are like, men can get pregnant, kill landlords, there's no such thing as biology or category. That must be tough, bro. That's really hard. That's difficult, right?
Talking about all these different issues, I want to head to another issue which I find particularly interesting. You're widely considered champagne socialists of both aisles.
So this guy says you're widely considered a champagne socialist, which is true, widely considered, but Hasan doesn't think he should be held accountable to any standard outside of that which he cultivates in his Twitch chat, which is the reason why he wants to find that absurd. Unfortunately for him, most of the world agrees with that. It's very uncomfortable for the psychopath when he's reminded that 98% of the population isn't a psychopath. They can't stand being judged because the psychopathic dark tetrad personality is not competent, and it feigns competence. This is the reason why his clothes look the way they do. He's trying to emulate a higher form of intellectual ability than what he has. And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just objectively stating this, because the dark tetrad personality distribution has to feign competence. And so being seen as a fraud is the most triggering thing that can happen to them, because they can't win back their position by using competence, like an actually competent person would. If Jordan Peterson was asked a question that he found ridiculous, he would dismantle it intellectually, very impressively, and then everyone would coalesce around him. This is the definition of good. People using coherence and harmony coalesce around that which is true, those which embody reality, those which embody truth, whereas the psychopathic leftist can only retreat. The psychopath, for this reason, is unstable. The narcissistic personality is always moving around in society. They never can find substantiation in one place, because they're always getting found out as frauds. And so nothing is more triggering to a dark tetrad narcissistic psychopath personality, especially an incompetent one, than being seen as a fraud, which is what this person's doing. Clearly stating most people view you as a champagne socialist. What do you have to say about this? Because most people view you this way. So he can't argue this, so he just becomes triggered.
I find particularly interesting. You're widely considered champagne socialists of both aisles. And I saw that you were traveling here on first class when you came to the UK. Personally, I never went on first class. I hope you had a comfortable travel.
Dude, this guy's saying you flew first class here. I hope you had a comfortable travel. This is great. Why didn't you give that to someone else? You're a socialist, right?
Yeah. I still think it's an issue worth pointing out.
By the way, it's interesting how the people in the audience are way more disheveled and disordered than the audience that attended Jordan Peterson's lectures. You see a bunch of ugly women, I'll be honest, they're all below 6s. Men in sweatshirts attending a talk at Cambridge. This is who the left has, obviously. It's really sad, but you see embodied exactly who they are.
Because when it comes to especially the consumption of luxury goods, sports cars, $1 million property, which you
sports cars as well,
really know to engage in, how can you justify yourself as a moral character on the left when you are benefiting more than many capitalists are from what you're doing as being a Twitch streamer, exploiting other streamers through your reaction content, which you are?
That's a great point. According to the leftist own doctrine, he's exploiting people by making money. Of course, that's not true, because you're not exploiting anybody by participating in capitalism. But the left, if they were to be intellectually consistent, would have to say that he's exploiting people. Amazing question.
Which is a widely established fact. They're socially necessary every time, considering what you heard. You put in that much.
Look how uncomfortable he is. Dude, he's tapping his foot. This is what happens when an incompetent psychopath is held accountable. It's beautiful. This is the reason why it's going viral on X.
As the other streamers that you engage in reacting to. And furthermore, when it comes to...
Can we keep it brief if we can?
The leftist moderator is very uncomfortable, of course.
When it comes to the consumption of luxury goods, what do you think Marx, Lenin, Rosa Luxemburg, weakness.
Right. By the way, Lenin wrote that 2/3 of the farmer population in Soviet Russia should be deliberately starved to death to usher in the utopia. That's how much he hated wealth. That's how much Lenin despised wealth. He couldn't stand farmers. So what would Lenin have to say about Hasan?
What do you think they would say about this kind of new brand of socialism that you represent? Which is, by any measure of it,
I think we're asking the same question.
Moderator is very uncomfortable.
I think that you are. I think that you are.
Let's. We're very short for time. Please.
Oh, it's so pathetic, dude. It's so pathetic. Leftists can't stand being held accountable. Look at how uncomfortable they are at being confronted by objective reality. It's not just that this guy's pointing out how they're incongruent. He's reminding them that there's a greater standard which holds them accountable that they all can't stand, called objective reality. Reason, rationality. Not only points out the hypocrisy, but reminds them that reality exists, which we take for granted, but to leftists is infuriating.
Real societal revolution change, because you are no more than a packeteer.
Okay. Thank you for the question. I don't know how familiar you are with Karl Marx, but his bestie literally had a factory, so I don't think that he had that much issue with people that came from means.
The leftist position is only demonizing people who came from means, and furthermore, we're always trying to make that a rebuttal to their objective competence. The common lie of Elon Musk having an emerald mine or whatever, completely made up, completely fictitious, but they are actually obsessed with people who come from means. The resentment of Marxism knows no bounds, but they don't feel the necessity as leftists to represent anything coherently. So they can say anything regardless of it being tethered to the truth. Of course, this is just an outgrowth of their psychopathy. And if you take note, throughout the entire question, Hasan was laughing. Again, the exact same thing we saw earlier when he was asked about his statements calling for the death of landlords, because being held accountable to leftists is, in their view, funny. This is from the pit of evil, though. We all know one of the most evil things you can witness is somebody laughing and scorning the idea of objective morality. In court, when you see a mass murderer laughing at being sentenced, we all know, okay, that's the pit of evil. That's about as evil as it gets, laughing at objective immorality. But that's what the left sanctions, not daily, not hourly, but in every substructure of every thought that they construct, while being deformed, incompetent, meritless, pathetic, weak, intellectually and physically. They believe that they're better than you. They believe that they're better than reality. Because leftism, the ideology of Marxism, tells them that they're better than you, tells them that they're above reality. Because ultimately it is driven by resentment for good. They're driven by resentment for virtue. This is the reason why so many people have been able to understand that leftism is almost synonymous with Satanism, insofar as its resentment is directed at reality itself, a denial of the ordered good in the abstract. So when I saw Hasan getting bullied to this extent, I knew that we had to cover this. And if you appreciate my efforts here and want to support me further, go to abrahambir.locals.com. I'll have it linked in the description, and subscribe to me there, because this channel is demonetized. Calling out the left is not very profitable because they demonetize any person that speaks the truth, because the same people on stage are the same people that run these big tech platforms, at least for now. So if you want to subscribe there, I appreciate you. If you made it this far in the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 10,000. It's very important to understand the architecture and nature of the psychopathic, evil, destructively incompetent left.